Hello guys, welcome back. This is Seema. Today I'm going to start with the next chapter of module 2, that is analog to digital conversion. So we already know that a digital signal is superior to an analog signal. The tendency of today's or the tendency in this world today is to change an analog signal to a digital data. So in this session we're going to learn about a conversion of analog signal into a digital data. So let's see how this conversion will taken up. So let's start with the analog to digital conversion. So as you know that in order to understand in order to gain the understanding of a system, it will need a digital data. So we'll start learning with how this analog signal is going to convert into a digital data. So this analog to digital conversion is one of a predominant technique which is used to represent the analog information or which is used to represent the analog data by a digital signal. So before going inside the systems or before going to convert any signals, we need to represent the analog information into a digital signals. Basically we are going to use two different techniques in order to convert this analog signals into a digital data or a digital signals. So those two techniques are the very first one or the very predominant one is pulse code modulation, which is also called as a PCM, and the next one is delta modulation, which is called as a DM. So these are the two major techniques which can be used for the purpose of converting an analog signal into a digital signal. Now let's start with thinking about or just going to learn about a pulse code modulation. So here we'll start with pulse code modulation. This is the most common technique which is used to change an analog signal to a digital data. The process we are going to use in order to convert an analog signal to a digital data is digitization. So we are going to use a process called digitization in order to convert the analog signal into a digital data. So by using a digitization process, we are going to convert the analog signal to a digital data. So this technique is called as a pulse code modulation. So pulse code modulation is one of the most common technique which is used to change an analog signal to a digital data, and the process is called as a digitization. So this technique or this method is called as a pulse code modulation. We have an encoder here. So we have a pulse code modulation encoder in order to convert any analog to a digital data. So this pulse code modulator encoder will have three different processes. The first one is sampling. So sampling, in a sense, first the analog signal is sampled. So in case of a sampling, the analog signal is sampled. So in case of a sampling process, first whatever the analog signal we are going to change into a data, that is sampled. So the next is quantization. So in this process, the analog signal is the sampled. Here the analog signal is sampled, right? Now this sampled signal is quantized. Now we have a sampled signal. So in case of a quantization process, this sampled signal is getting quantized. So by using the quantization process, we're going to quantize the sample signal. So the sample signal is obtained by using a sampling process. So the analog signal is sampled by using a sampling process. Then this sampled signal will convert it into a quantized signal by using a quantization process. So let's see which is the last process in case of a PCM encoder. We have an encoding here. So why we need this encoding here is whatever the sample signal we are quantized, whatever the quantized signal we have, so those quantized values, the quantized values are encoded as streams of bits. So whatever the signal is quantized, so those values of a particular signal, so those quantized value of a particular signal are encoded into a streams of bits, that is either to zeros and ones. So these are the three different processes. The very first one is the way whatever the analog signal that we are thinking about to convert, those analog signal is sampled by using a process called sampling. So those sampled signal will converted into a quantized signal by using a quantization purpose. So the sample signal is quantized by using a quantization process. Then the quantized signal, so based on the values of a quantized signal, by using an encoding technique, these quantized values are encoded as a streams of bits, that is either zeros and ones. So these are the three different processes of PCM encoders: the sampling, quantizing, and encoding. So here is a pictorial representation of components of PCM encoder. So here we have a three different processes are undergoing, that is a sampling, quantizing, and encoding. So as I said, first the analog signal is the whatever the analog signal that we need to convert. So we're going to apply this analog signal into a sampling process. So on applying the sampling process, this analog signal is sampled. So once it is sampled, the sample signal will undergo the quantizing process. So on undergoing the quantizing process, the signal is quantized. So on undergoing this quantization process, it will going to in a quantized state. So on quantizing, the sample signal is quantized. So based on this quantized values, so based on this is the quantized value. So based on this quantized values, we are going to apply this encoding technique inside this quantized values. So this encoding technique will provide a stream of bits. So whatever the signal we have obtained by this quantizing process, so for those values we are going to have a stream of bits by applying the process called encoding. So we'll get a stream of bits, that is zeros and ones, as a digital data. So this is the components of pulse code modulation encoder. So as I said, let's think with each and every step. So sampling. So sampling is the very first step in case of a pulse code modulation encoder. So this sampling is the very first step or the very major step in case of a pulse code modulation. So this sampling is the very first step of pulse code modulation. So here sampling is the process of obtaining an amplitude of signals at regular interval of time period. So by using this sampling process, we're going to obtain an amplitude of signals. So the analog signals in this process, the analog signals, so whatever the analog signals we have, so those analog signal is sampled for every t seconds. So for it, this all the analog signals, all the analog signals are sampled for every second. So every time period of a second or every time interval, these analog signals are sampled. So in case of a sampling, analog signals are sampled for every time period of second. So here the TS is a sample interval or a time period or a period of a duration. So this sampling is also referred to as pulse amplitude modulation. So this sampling process is also called as pulse amplitude modulation, which is the abbreviation is PAM. So the abbreviation is PAM. So we need to remember how the results is still in an analog and non-integral values. So the analog signals is sampled for every TS second. So as I said, so these TS is a sample interval or a time period. So the inverse of sampling interval is called as a sampling rate. So whatever the here we have a TS as a period of time period. So here we have a TS seconds. So the analog signal is sampled for every TS seconds. So the inverse of this, the sampling interval, is called as a sampling rate, or it is also called as a frequency of sampling. So it is denoted by Fs, that is the frequency of a sampling. So frequency of sampling is equals to 1 by time interval, or 1 by sample interval, or 1 by time period. So the inverse of sample interval is denoted by Fs, where Fs is equals to 1 by sample interval, or 1 by time period. So basically we have a 3 different sampling methods, and those are ideal method, natural method, and flat top method. So these are the 3 major sampling methods. So here we have a 3 major sampling methods here. One is an ideal, natural, and flat top. So here we have a 3 major sampling methods. So here we have an ideal sampling, right? So in this ideal sampling, the pulses from the analog signals are sampled. So the pulses from an analog signals are sampled for each and every time period. So this is an ideal sampling method, and it cannot be easily implemented. So in case of a natural sampling, it's a high speed switch which is turned on only for a small period of time. So it will also have a small period of time when the sampling will occur. So this is a natural sampling. So when I come to a flat top, this it will create a flat top samples by using a circuit. So it will usually create a flat at the top. Since it creates a flat like structure at the top, we call this as a flat top samples. So it is by using a circuit, we are going to create a flat top sampling. So in ideal sampling, pulses from analog signals are sampled. So whatever the analog signals are coming from an so those pulses from an analog signals are sampled in case of an ideal sampling. Whereas in case of a natural sampling, as I said, we use a high speed switch which is turned on for only the small period of time. So only at a time where the sampling will occur. So at that particular point of time, the high speed switch will turn on. So all the remaining time, those high speed switches will turn off. So the result is a sequence of samples that retain a shape of analog signals. Whereas in case of a flat top, it will create by using a structure called like a circuit like structure, we are going to create a flat top samples. So these are the 3 main methods of sampling. Next we have sampling rate. So what do you mean by a sampling rate? So this sampling rate is one of the most important consideration. So one important consideration in sampling rate is one important consideration of sampling is sampling rate, or it is also called as a frequency. So this is one of the major important consideration which is called as a sampling rate, or it is also called as a frequency. So the major consideration of sampling is sampling rate or a frequency. So according to the Nyquist theorem, to produce any original analog signals, the only necessary condition is that the sampling rate at least twice the highest frequency in the original signals. So according to the Nyquist theorem, it says that in order to produce the original analog signals, there is a one important and necessary condition. So what is that necessary condition is the sampling rate will be always at least twice the highest frequency. So whatever the original signals we have, so when comparing with the original signals, the sampling rate will always be twice higher than the original signal. So the frequency of sampling rate of the original of the signals is quite higher than the original signals. So this is the Nyquist sampling rate for low pass and band pass signals. So here we'll have a recovery of sample sine wave with different considerations. So let's take an example here. So this is an innovative example of Nyquist theorem. Here we have a simple sine wave with different samples rate. So we have a different samples rate here. So we have a 3 different sampling rate, that is the sampling rate of frequency sampling rate is equals to 2f and 4f as well as a f, right? So here what this 2f is the Nyquist theorem says. So according to the Nyquist theorem, in order to produce the original, so this is the original signal, right? So according to the Nyquist theorem, what he said, in order to produce the original signal, only the one condition is the sampling rate. This sampling rate will at least twice higher than the original signal. So the twice higher than the frequency of original signal. So the sampling rate is 2f. So here the next is, here it is 2 times the Nyquist theorem. So it is the 2 times. So it is 2 times higher than the Nyquist rate, right? Here it is, it follows a Nyquist theorem. So it will follow Nyquist theorem, whereas here it is 2 times higher than the Nyquist theorem, right? Yes, right. So here it will not follow this Nyquist theorem. It is half of the Nyquist rate. That is, it says that it is twice higher than a frequency, but here it is not a twice highest. It is less than frequency. So it is one off of the Nyquist theorem. So this will show the sampling and sub-recovery states. This will show the sampling as well as the sub-recovery states of a Nyquist theorem. So by using a sampling rate, how these three things are going to evaluate. So here we have a problem, that is what is the problem statement is, we have a complex low pass signal which has a bandwidth of 200 kilohertz. Then they ask that what is the minimum sampling rate for the signal. So here we know that in order to by using a Nyquist theorem, he says that the signals, whatever the analog signals we have, is 2 times higher than the original signals. So here they are giving 200. So we can sample this signal 2 times the higher frequency. So here they are giving the frequency is 200. So by for this we need to apply the Nyquist theorem. So for this we need to apply the Nyquist theorem. So what the Nyquist theorem will say, the Nyquist theorem will eventually says that the analog signals, the original analog signals what we have obtained is always the twice higher than the original signal. So the whatever the signal is given, so it is always twice higher than the original signal. So according to the Nyquist theorem, in order to produce the original analog signal, the sampling rate will be at least twice higher than the frequency. So here they'll ask us, so by applying the Nyquist theorem, it is 2 into 200 kilohertz, that is 400 kilohertz. Hence the sampling rate is So here they are giving a 200 kilohertz. So by applying the Nyquist theorem, it is always the Nyquist theorem says that whenever we are going to convert any signal, it will always be twice higher than the given signal. So that is 2 into 200 kilohertz. We will get a 400 kilohertz. So the minimum sampling rate for a particular signal is 400 kilohertz sample per second. So this is how they will go the problems. So the next thing is quantization. So the next thing about pulse code modulation is quantization. So let's see what you mean by a quantization, why we need this quantization process and all. So here, in case of a quantization, the result of sampling. So from the sampling, we'll obtain a series of pulses with the amplitude with the values between the minimum and maximum amplitude of signals. So this set of amplitude can be infinite with a non-integral values between two limits. So here the quantization, this is an assignment of specific range of values in order to signal the amplitude. So the quantization is a process in which we have got the assignment of a specific range of values to a signal amplitude is done. So the result of a sampling is a series of pulses. So whatever we obtain from sampling is a series of pulses with the amplitude values between the minimum and maximum amplitude of a particular signal. So those set of amplitude can be infinite with a non-integral value either between the two limits, that is an upper and lower limit, and these values cannot be used for an encoding process. So here are the steps in quantization process. The major steps are, we assume that the original analog signal has an instantaneous amplitude between V minimum and V maximum. So it will always, the signal will always arises with the limits, that is the voltage level will always arises between the limits, that is a minimum and maximum. So we divide the entire ranges into the L zone. So we divide the entire levels. So these levels of zones, so the range is divided with the two different things. One is a minimum and another one is a maximum. So for each of a height, so the height is represented by called as a delta. So in order to measure any signals, we are going to have a height, so it is called as a delta. So we, by using a quantization process, will obtain, we derive a formula called height, that is a delta is equals to maximum voltage or the maximum range of original signals minus the minimum of original signals divided by entire ranges of a length or entire length of a signals. So we assign the quantized values of 0 to L minus 1 to the midpoint of each zone. So whatever we are going to have a quantized value, we have a 0 to L minus 1. So whatever, if we have an n different numbers of original signals, then we are going to take, if we have an L different zones, then we are going to take L minus 1. So we approximate the value of sample amplitude to different quantized values. So these are the four major steps in case of a quantization process. So here we have a 8 different quantizing signals. So observe the diagram here. Here in this example, we have a 8 quantized level, right? We have a 5 at 4 at upper level and 4 at lower level. Here we have a 4. Again here we have a 4. So totally here we have a 4 and here we have a 4. So totally we have a 8 different sets of values. So we have 8 different values. So here the choice of L, that is the number of levels, will depend on the range of amplitude of analog signals. So this figure will show the quantization and encoding of a sample signals. So observe in this diagram, it will show the signals. There is a quantization and encoding of sample signals. So assume that we have a sample signal and sample amplitude are between -22 plus 20. So here whatever they are giving us, the voltage level is the minimum and the maximum voltage level they are given. So it is -22 plus 20. So here they are giving V minimum and V maximum. So they are giving that V minimum and V maximum. So based on this, we need to decide. We have a 8 different levels, that is L is equals to 8. Then by applying this L minimum and L maximum, that is what is the formula we have is minimum minus maximum, right? That is we have a V minimum. The formula is delta is equals to V max minus V min divided by L. That is, so the maximum values is minus. So here how we get this delta is equals to 5 is just apply the formula. That is, what is the formula? So we know the formula is, we know that in order to calculate this delta, that is the height, we have the formula called delta is equals to maximum of voltage, that is the voltage maximum minus V max minus V min divided by L. So here they are given the two different ranges. So it is a minimum value and it is V max. So here it is. So just apply it to the formula. So we'll get V max is equals to 20 plus 20 it is. So minus V min, the minimum is minus 20 and the L. So the level L is 8. They are giving the level L as 8. So it will become here 20 minus into minus plus. So 20 plus 20 is 40 divided by 8. So 8 ones are 8, 5s are. So it will become delta is equals to 5 volts. Clear? So next we have a quantization levels. So in the previous examples, we showed the 8 quantization levels. So here the choice of L is the number of levels, which depends on the range of amplitude of an analog signal and how accurately we need to recover the signals. If the amplitude of a signal will fluctuate between two values only, then only 2 levels are needed. So in the previous examples, the value is fluctuating between 8 different points, right? So 8 different points. Then so we are going to consider 8 different levels. So we are going to have a positive 4 and negative 4. So if the amplitude of a signal is fluctuates between the two values, then we need only 2 levels. So whatever, how many numbers of values where the signals is fluctuate. So based on the number of levels, based on the number of values, we are going to decide how much number of levels will needed. So if the amplitude of a signals, if a fluctuation is between two values, then we are going to have a 2 levels. If the fluctuation is taken up with 6 different values, then we have a 6 different levels. If it is with 4, then we need 4 different levels. So based on a signal fluctuation, based on the values that we are going to use in case of a signal fluctuation, the levels will create. So if the signal like voice has many amplitude values, then more quantization levels are needed. So we know that signal will always fluctuate between different range of signals. We can't talk in a very same frequency. So we can't talk in a same amplitude value. So each and every time when we are talk, we raise the voice, we decrease the voice. So it will require more numbers of quantization levels. In audio digitizing also, the levels will be chosen. So in case of an audio digitizing, they choose the level L as 256. Whereas in case of a videos, it will normally ranges to thousands. So lowering the values of L will increasing the quantization errors if there is a lot of fluctuation in a signal. So whenever we are going to lower this values of L, then there might be a chances of increasing the quantization errors. So there is a chances of increasing the quantization errors. So next is quantization errors. What do you mean by a quantization errors? So one important thing about a quantization, one important thing is error created in the quantization process. So whatever the error is created in case of a quantization process is called as a quantization error. So it is one of an important issues. So quantization is an approximation process where an input values to a quantizer are the real values, output values are approximated values. So whatever the value we are obtained, we are going to give as an input is the real values, but whatever the values we are obtaining as an output or an approximate values. They are not an accurate values, they are just approximate values. So the output values are always chosen to be the middle value in the zone. If the input value is also at a middle zone, there is no quantization errors. Otherwise, there is an error. So the whatever the output value, it's an approximate value. So if the output values are approximated at a middle value of a zone, and at the same time, if the input value is also at the middle of a zone, then both the output and input are at the same zone, that is in the middle zone. So if the output and the input are at the same zone, if input as well as the output, if input and output are at same zone, at that particular point of time, there is no quantization errors. So at the time period where the input and output are at the same zone, then at that particular point of time, there is no quantization errors. There is no chances of occurring the quantization errors. So from this point, we'll get to know that the quantization errors will occur when the output value and the input value will be at different zones. So the quantization error changes the signal to noise ratio. That is, it will change the SNR ratio of a particular signal, which in turn reduces the upper limit capacity. So the quantization error to the SNR dB of a particular signal will depend on a number of quantization levels or the bits per sample. So here we have a formula called SNR dB is equals to 6.02 n plus 1.76 dB. So this is the formula in order to find out the quantization errors of a SNR dB. So next we have a uniform versus non-uniform quantization. So as we see, for n numbers of applications, the amplitude of a particular analog signal is not always uniform. So they are non-uniform in some of the cases. So the distribution of instantaneous amplitude in a particular analog signal is not an uniform. So most of the cases it is non-uniform. So changes in an amplitude will often occur more frequently in the lower amplitude than in a higher one. So we're going to change the amplitude value from a higher to a lower range. So for these types of applications, we are going to use a non-uniform zones. So we know that we have a formula to calculate a delta, that is a height. So height of a delta is not fixed. So it is based on the minimum and maximum values. So the height of a delta is not fixed. It is greater near the lower amplitude and less near the higher amplitude. So the delta is calculated by Vmin and Vmax. So this delta is changes for each and every times of period, each and every amplitude values. So this delta is not fixed. This delta is greater when it is towards the lower amplitude, and it is less when it is near the higher amplitude. So in some cases, the non-quantization process, the non-uniform quantization process can also be achieved by a process called compounding or expanding. So by using the two different techniques called compounding and expanding, we are going to achieve non-uniform quantization process. That is expanding or expansion of a particular signal. So the signal is compounded at the sender before conversion. So it is expanded at the receiver after conversion. So the compoundation process is taken up at a sender side and the expandation process will be taken at receiver side. Here next we have an encoding, which is the last step of pulse code modulation. So after the sampling process, we are going to give the sampling into a quantize. So after quantization, this will going to encode the signals into a sequence of bits. So after each sample is quantized and the number of bits per sample is decided, then each sample can be changed to n bit code word, that is 0 to 0 and 1. It will change from 0 and 1. So the number of bits for each particular sample is determined by different quantization levels. So if the number of levels is L, then we have a formula called NB is equals to number of bit is equals to log base 2 quantization levels. So we have a formula to calculate the bit rate, that is bit rate is equals to sampling rate into number of bits per sample. So we know that in order to calculate the sampling rate, we have a term called as Fs into number of bits, that is NB. So here we have a problem. So what they are giving in the problem statement here, we want to digitize a human voice with a bit rate assuming that it will have an 8 bits per sample. So we know that the human voice will normally contains a frequency of 0 to 4000 Hz. So by using in order to calculate the bit rate, we need both the sampling rate as well as the number of bits. So we need both the sampling rate and number of bits rate, that is Fs into NB. So in order to calculate the bit rate, we need this, right? So first we need to calculate the frequency sampling rate. So what according to the Nyquist theorem? So Nyquist theorem says, so whatever the frequency that they are given, it is always twice higher than the original signal. So we are going to apply the 2 in case of a frequencies, that is we need to apply for the maximum of frequency, that is 2 into 4000. So it will become 8000. So the now sampling rate is 8000. So this is my Fs. So this is my sampling rate. Now they are giving that it's 8 bit per second. So 8 bit per sample. So NB is equals to 8. So on applying 8000 into 8, we are get 64 bounds per second or 64 kilobounds per second, 64,000 bps or 64 kilobounds per second. So these are the very small problems they might given for around 2 to 4 marks. So next we have how to recover a original signals. So in order to recover the original signals, we actually need a PCM and decoder. So once we are going to encode the signals, so in order to recover the back, we need a decoder. So it uses a circuitry in order to convert our words into a pulse. So whatever the encoded signals we have, in order to decode it back, we'll use a circuitry to convert the code words into a pulse, which holds the amplitude until the next pulse. So after the staircase signal is completed, it is passed to a low pass filter to smooth the staircase signal into an analog signal. So if the signal has been sampled at the Nyquist sampling rate, and if there are any enough quantization levels, then the original signal will be recreated. So by using the Nyquist theorem, it will create a original signal. So these are the two different components. So here we have a decoder, that is a low pass filter and sample. So here, so PCM bandwidth. So what actually this PCM bandwidth will say about is, suppose we are given a bandwidth of a low pass analog signal. If we then digitize the signal, what is the new minimum bandwidth of a channel that can pass this digitized signal? So we have said that the minimum bandwidth of a line encoded signal is B minimum is equals to C into N into 1 by R. So we need to substitute the value of N. So here we have a formula called B minimum is equals to C into number of bits into 1 by ratio. So here this N is number of bits into frequencies by using a Nyquist theorem. So here, whatever the frequency they are given is always twice higher, right? So according to the Nyquist theorem, it will become 2fs. So they are giving it as the analog signal. So we need to convert an analog signal, bandwidth of an analog signal. So will they apply 2 into bandwidth of an analog signal into 1 by ratio. So 1 by R is, since the ratio of an analog signal in case of a bipolar, for we have a non ratio, so or no return to 0 or non return to 0, we have a 1. So 1 by R itself is a R. So we know that the constant C is 1 by 2. So C is 1 by 2. Since the value is fluctuating between 0 and 1, since the constant value is fluctuating between 2 bits, that is 0 and 1, we are going to consider C as 1 by 2. So the ratio is 1 since it is non-return to 0. So on applying all these things, we'll get, here it is NB into B analog, NB into B analog. So on applying all the different values, so which says that this is the minimum bandwidth of a digital signal is number of bits times greater than the bandwidth of analog signal. So this is the price we pay for digitization. So whatever the amount we are, whatever the values we are getting, so this is the total price we are pay for the digitization process. So here we have some arguments. So maximum data rate of a particular channel. So in order to derive a particular formula, so we know that the Nyquist theorem. So according to the Nyquist theorem, so whatever the frequency of a original signal is there, so it's twice higher than the given higher signal. So whatever the signal we obtain, it is always twice higher than the given signals. So next, we give the data rate of a particular channel as N maximum, that is 2 into B into log base 2L. So we can reduce this formula by using a Nyquist sampling theorem. So these are the following argument, that is, we need to assume that the available channel is low pass with a bandwidth B. Then we also assume that the digital signals we want to send as L different levels. So these levels are determined by the fluctuations of amplitude, right? So the L will depend upon the fluctuations of amplitude. So if it is with 2 different values, then we are going to have a 2 different levels. So if it is with N different values, then we'll go with N different levels. So where each level is a signal element. So here the ratio R is equals to 1 by log base 2L. So here the L represents the number of levels. So we first pass the digital signals through a low pass filter in order to cut off the frequencies above B hertz. So we treat the resulting signals as analog signals and sampled into 2 into B samples per second and quantized using the L levels. Additional quantized levels are useless. and because the signals originally had L levels, so additional levels, that is N plus levels, are useless. So this N plus levels, additional levels, are useless. So the resulting bit is N. The resulting bit is represented by N, that is the Fs into NB, where this Fs will the sampling rate. So that is, it will always say that it is twice higher than the original signal. So it is 2 into original signal into NB is the number of bits. So it is the number of bits is log base 2 level. So this is the maximum bandwidth. So N maximum is equals to 2 into the twice higher than the given signal, twice higher than the given signal into log base 2 levels. So next we have a minimum required bandwidth. So for calculating the minimum, we are going to have a formula called the signal B minimum is equals to N divided by 2 into log base 2 L hertz. So next we have transmission modes. So in order to transmit the data across a particular link, we have a two different modes. One is a parallel mode and a serial mode. So the transmission of this data will taken up with two different modes. One is a parallel and another one is serial. So with respect to a serial, we have again three different modes, that is synchronous, asynchronous, and isochronous. So let's start with each and everything. So this is with respect to a parallel transmission. So this is the pictorial representation of parallel transmission. So in case of a parallel transmission, we are going to send a multiple. So we are going to send a multiple clocks. Here we are sending multiple bits. So here we are sending 8 bits are to send together. So we are sending a multiple bits with each cycle or each clock. So it consists of a binary data, that is zeros and ones. So they are organized into n different numbers of bits. So it will use n different numbers of wires. So for 8 bits, they are going to use 8 different wires. So for n different bits, so they need to use n different wires. So in order to transmit the n bits, they use n different wires. So all n bits of one group can be transmitted with each clock tick. So for a particular clock tick, for each and every clock tick, it will going to send a particular bit. So this is a parallel transmission. So let's see the advantage and disadvantage of parallel transmission. So the very first thing or very first advantage or the major advantage of parallel transmission is its speed. So why the speed is, in case of a parallel transmission, it can increase the transfer speed by a factor of n. So it will increase the speed of a particular signal by n. So based on a value of n, it eventually increases the speed. So there is also one of a disadvantage, that is cost. So we know that in case of a parallel transmission, it will require n different wires or n different communication lines. So if there is any failures in a link, it will cost a higher to design it back. So this is a major disadvantage. So next we have serial here. In case of a serial transmission, at a time 1 bit is sent. So at each clock tick, only 1 bit is transferred. So one follows the other. If you want to send 8 bits, we need to send with 8 different clock times. So here we have a serial transmission where they are sending 8 different bits. So here they are going to use only one link or only one wire. So each and every time only 1 bit is going to transfer. So they are going to transfer only 1 bit at a particular period of time. So the major advantage is only one communication channel is required. So there is no blockage or anything. There is no difficulty to send back all the bits in only one time. So it eventually sends each and every bit at their own particular time period. So that it also reduces the cost of transmission over parallel. So it will also reduce some difficulties by providing a single link and by sending each and every bit at a particular clock period of time. So this serial transmission will occur in three different ways, that is asynchronous, synchronous and isochronous. So when I say about an asynchronous serial transmission, it sends one start bit, that is 0 at a beginning, and one or more stop bit at the end of an each bit. So the timing of a particular signal is not an important in case of an asynchronous. The information is received and translated by agreed upon some patterns. So without this synchronization, in case of an asynchronous process, they won't consider anything about a time. So they can't, the receiver cannot use timing in order to predict when the next group will arrive. So it will not, the synchronous will not depend on a timing factor. So to alert the receiver to the arrival of a new group, therefore an extra bit is added to beginning of each bit. So to alert and the receiver that a new group is coming up, so an extra bit is added. So this extra bit is usually a 0. So the 0 is called as a start bit, and it's also an extra bit, so which is used to indicate the new group of a bits is on the arrival state. To let the receiver know that the byte is finished, one or more additional bytes are appended. So in order to know that the bits are at a final state, the one is used at an end of a byte. So here this is an asynchronous process. Here they are going to use 0 to say that it is the bits are in an arrival state. So they are going to use 1 in order to say it's in a final state. So here they'll give the, if I think this is as a bit, so they'll use this 0 in order to say the bits are at an arrival state. So this is a start bit. So this 1 is usually indicated, which is used to say this the last bit. So the receiving will know that this is the completion of a process. So in addition to all these things, the transmission of each byte may then followed by a gap. So there should be a gap. Here we have a gap. Here also we have a gap. So there's a gap between the data units. So this gap can be represented by an ideal channel or can be represented by stream of additional stop bits. So this start and stop bit and the gap. So there are three things: stop bit, start bit, as well as a gap. So these three things will alert the receiver to the beginning and end of each byte and allow it to synchronize with data stream. So by using this gap, stop bit, and start bit, the receiver will get to know that whichever the bit it will take, or whichever the format or the number of bits per time it will come, and it allows to synchronize with particular data stream. So by using these three things, that is a stop bit, start bit, and a gap bit, it will detect a start bit, which is a start bit. It also sets a timer and begins to count the bits as they come in. So after different numbers of a bit, after receiving different bits, the receiver will look for the stop bit. So we get to know that the start bit will eventually start from 0 and the last bit will end with 1. So it detects the stop bit, it waits until it detects the next start bit. So if there is any gap occurs, then the first bit after this gap is 0. So it indicates the arrival of next group of bytes or the next group of bits. So this is how the asynchronous process is taken up. So they are using three different things in order to get an alert of different data streams, that is a stop bit, start bit, and gap. So next is synchronous serial transmission. So here the bit streams is combined into a longer frame which may contain multiple bytes. So here will comes the word called a frame. So in case of a synchronous serial transmission, they use an entity called frames. So here the bit streams is combined into a longer frame which may contain multiple bytes. So every byte is introduced into a transmission link. So each and every byte which we are going to, with the frame will introduce into a transmission link without a gap between it and the next one. So we see a gap between first and gap between the different bytes or so different bit stream, we see the gap in case of an asynchronous, right? So in case of asynchronous, there is no talk about a gap. So without a gap between the streams of a bit, in case of a synchronous serial transmission, the transmission process is carried out. Let's see how this transmission is carried out without a gap. So it is left to the user to separate the bit stream into a byte for decoding purpose. So separating of bit stream is totally a task of is a major task of a receiver. Whereas in case of a synchronous, it will give an alert message that this is the start and this is the stop. So based on these two conditions and by using a strategy called gap, so based on these three things, in case of an asynchronous, they get to know that which is the different bit streams they are. So to which group they belongs to. But this case is not there with respect to a synchronous serial transmission. So in case of a synchronous serial transmission, the separation of bit stream, this separation of bit stream is completely depend on the receiver. So this will the major task of a particular receiver. So he is going to separate the bit streams into a byte for a decoding purposes. Bits are sent one after the other without start, stop, or gap. So as I said, in case unlike an asynchronous serial transmission, in case of a synchronous serial transmission, there is no talk of, there is no point of start bit, stop bit, or gaps. So it is the responsibility of a receiver to group the bits into a streams. So timing becomes very much important in case of synchronous. Therefore, the accuracy of a received information is completely dependent on ability of the receiving device to keep an accurate count of bits as they come in. So it will completely depend. So the synchronous serial transmission is completely dependent on a receiver. So the major act in case of a synchronous is receiver. So the advantage is speed. So this is synchronous. Here there is no talk about a start, stop, or a gap. So whenever how the bits will come, so the receiver will eventually, according to the flow of according to the layout, according to the order of a flow, the receiver will going to receive the bits of stream. So here this is called as a frame. So here the bit stream is called as a frame in case of a synchronous. So let's see with isochronous serial transmission. So this mode provides synchronization for an entire stream of bits. It is used with real-time audio and video application. So here it comes with audio and video application. It also provides an uneven delay between frames. So if there is any uneven delay like that, then the frames are not acceptable. So that bits are not acceptable. Then it is called as a synchronous transmission fails. So here there is an example called as a TV image will broadcast a range of 30 images per second. They must be viewed at a same rate. So if each image is sent by using one or more frames, there should be no delays between the frames. So this isochronous will always guarantees that the data will arrive at a specific and a fixed rate of time. So that's all about the analog to digital conversion. Thank you all for your kind attention.